All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Millennials Are Old podcast. And you know what, Brian? I've been thinking, right? We've been doing this podcast for almost 3 motherfucking years. And I just realized the other day, we're about to hit episode motherfucking 100 right now. Can you fucking
It
believe that?
really,
Isn't that crazy?
it is crazy. It is a time to celebrate.
It is the time to celebrate. Some people might even say it's time to get crunk in this motherfucker.
Time to hit the windows, hit the walls. It's time to. What are other rap songs? That's the only rap song I know because I'm a millennial.
Exactly. So you know what, Brian? It's time to get crunk. It's time to get motherfucking crazy. And I think the way to do that is to review an embarrassing
Be
album from our
good.
childhood. Embarrassingly amazing album from our childhood.
An
So
embarrassment of riches.
very much so. So without further ado, for
Ugh.
episode 100, we're gonna fucking go for it. And we're gonna review Punk Goes Crunk.
Goes
The Punk
crunk.
Goes
The
Crunk.
worst fucking thing. I will take the credit for this one. I feel like typically really bad stuff, we kind of split responsibility for that, for who picks them. This is the worst thing ever, and I do take responsibility for it, but this is important.
Yes, so without further ado, once again, let's review Punk Goes Crunk. But before we get into our review this week, Brian, let's bring back our segment, Cringe Generational Cringe
Cringe
Millennial Moment of
generational moment of the
the Week.
week.
Yeah! And Brian, before you even get started, you're going to talk about somebody who is extremely millennial in every single way.
Oh
And
my
he's
God.
also on the soundtrack. So Brian, just go ahead with it.
Okay, so I have discussed a few times in the past before about how I have listened to more than my share of millennial pop punk, metalcore kind of stuff, Warped Tour type bands. That wasn't my preferred style. I'm into like late 70s, early 80s punk, but I was a millennial. That music was accessible to me, and I would find things to like about it. It gave me something to talk about with girls. Some of it was all right. There were a couple of bands in that kind of Warped Tour, Hot Topic scene that I really admired in high school. One of those bands was called Say Anything. Say Anything stand out from their peers, their Saves the Days, your Dashboard Confessionals, for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons is just musically, kind of a weird band. Originally started as a one-man project by a guy named Max Bemis. This is incredible to me because Bemis is one of the classic made-up FYAD words from Something Awful. People used to just say Bemis, and lo and behold, this is this guy's actual name. Originally, just he played all the instruments. Guitar, keyboards, vocals, drums, he played it all. He's very talented. And then musically, his influences were pretty weird. There is clearly a foundation of like pop punk. Clearly he was into, of course, Saves the Day, one of the first emo pop punk kind of crossover bands. Probably into Blink-182. In fact, I think he covered one of their songs on his first EP. But he was also into like weird shit. Say Anything, to this day, there's a big Faith No More influence, right? In his vocal mannerisms, there's a lot of weird Mike Pattonisms. He was very into Sonic Youth. He was very into The Clash, very into Queen, all this weird kind of theatrical stuff. And he kind of had this, like a very experimental kind of schizophrenic mixtape interpretation of pop punk, kind of second wave emo. Tying into that, he's kind of an intensely weird guy, very nasty guy, very openly had problems with like drug addiction, which doesn't make you a nasty guy, but he's very troubled. He's bipolar, and sometimes people use that as like an adjective to describe themselves. Max Bemis is to some degree medically bipolar. It is a challenge throughout his life, but he wrote about that. He wrote about being just this crazy narcissist asshole with a lot of drug problems, a lot of mental health issues, a lot of issues with women, and I would say more intense issues with women than your typical pop punk artist, to say the least. Very sexually charged lyrics, kind of beatnik poetry thing. But if you're a kid like me, who kind of an edgelord kid, I liked 70s punk. The thing that I didn't like about the pop punk thing, right, was that it lacked that kind of nastiness. To a certain degree, it's that it lacked the politics, and of course, I didn't like how polished the music was. But so for me at that time, Say Anything were kind of like, okay, this is like the pop punk band for me. That's how it felt. He wasn't that much older than me. He was kind of a psycho. His music was also kind of psycho in a way that now I find kind of obnoxious when I listen to it, although I still kind of respect it. But at the time, it was really appealing to me. The genre mashing and things. But the other thing that makes them stand out is that Max Bemis is weird. Bemis has multiple times been accused of ripping off fans. Well, first of all, just if you listen to his albums, there's a lot of antisocial shit in there. He openly would write about meeting fans online and then having them call him to have phone sex with them. This is not like a secret. This is just a thing that Bemis wrote about for a long time. His weird relationship with his female fans.
Brian, real quick, a pop punk guy who has a problem with his female fans?
Right.
Are you
Well,
fucking
but
kidding me? That's unheard of.
so Say Anything's first big single is a song where where he's like bragging about having phone sex with a girl that he meets online who may or may not be a fan, and then like in his head mocking her for like him being able to have phone sex with her. Like, I don't know why. I don't know. It's just a really mean, nasty song. This was like an alternative radio hit in like 2005. The song was called Whoa, I Can Get Sexual Too. It is a nasty song. It's got kind of an 80s new wave synth pop thing, so it stood out for that reason, you know, musically, but lyrically just crazy, crazy nasty shit for that scene. And as he got older, some of that bled in his behavior. Of course, Bemis has interesting politics. He describes as an anarchist. Like I said, he's very influenced by the music of The Clash. He also seems to have some weird opinions about Israel-Palestine. He's very dodgy about discussions of them. He's a Jewish American, which in itself doesn't really matter here, but he made an album in 2014, the last album I listened to by him really, called Hebrews, about like the Jewish diaspora, and he alludes to Palestine in some weird ways. He claims that it's not an anti-Palestine statement. I don't know. It's a weird album. Lyrics are very cryptic, but also he started this thing in the late 2000s where he was like, oh, I'm starting this song shop. So Bemis is someone who, he's like Morrissey. People that love him, like beyond the normal pop punk fandom thing. Like these kids like project themselves onto him. And he would say like, you send me something like $50 and I'm going to write a song just for you. Kind of a silly idea in retrospect, but people were excited about this. A lot of people didn't get their songs at all for years. I think some people didn't get their songs at all and eventually got them refunded. The people that did get their songs, and I've heard a number of them, they were all acoustic songs. They all sound very similar. He even reuses certain phrases in them. Seems like he's doing kind of a cut and paste job with people's names or information that he gathered about the people. Stuff like that. He became a born-again Christian in the early 2010s, but still really held on to kind of his Jewish identity in a certain way. And also, again, like a Christian anarchist who's kind of like a born-again Christian, like a weird hodgepodge of beliefs. He said he stopped doing drugs and drinking. I don't know, maybe this was true for a while, but it did not remain true. By the mid-2010s, a common thing was you'd go get tickets to see Say Anything, and they'd play 4 songs in, and they'd have to stop. Because after this first or second song, Bemis was too fucked up to keep playing, and he would lay on his back and try to sing. And a few songs in, they'd just be like, well, no, the show is over. No one's ever gotten refunds for these shows. People who are fans of Bemis say, well, you know, he's a fucked up guy, he's got problems, he's like this fucked up punk rock guy, but, you know, that's the excuse they make. This is not the weirdest or worst thing I'm going to tell you about Max Bemis. Max Bemis is married to a member of kind of emo indie pop all-girl band named Halsey. They have kids, and those kids seem to maybe be in crisis. So the Bemises have a lot of money problems. They're always running out of money. They're always posting about it online, and he was a pretty successful artist in the 2000s, right? He should be all right. People have noticed that in pictures that his wife would post of their kids, they were really dirty. Sometimes their hair was like matted. They looked kind of malnourished. People pointed out that their kids, when they would smile, looked like they had some rotted teeth. And then Bemis's wife took down those pictures and reposted them with all white teeth. It looks like she photoshopped healthier teeth onto the children. They're always going on these shopping sprees, showing off these lavish toys, these $1,000 American Girl dolls they buy for their kids, but then they like don't have money for basic essentials, it seems. For the last few years, they've been living out of Airbnbs and just traveling from Airbnb Say Anything tours. Kind of a guy that transcends all the weird pop punk tropes. He is such a fuck up weird millennial, and he is absolutely having hissy fits on social media all the time about how none of this is true, everyone's out to get him, and he will not be accountable for any of his faults.
Very interesting. You know, Brian, and I also just looked this up. Apparently, Max and his wife just separated like a few months ago. So, Brian, she's single.
Figures.
You thinking you might hit her up?
I mean, so I don't want to be like shitty here, but those Halsey girls, they did date members of Taking Back Sunday, Brand New, Say Anything. I think the Get Up Kids. You know, I may have a shot at this point. And
honestly, Brian, you'd be by far the least gaslighty partner they've ever had, by far.
Which is a non-zero. I'm trying to run through this. To be honest, I could probably do like a multi-part podcast about Say Anything. They're such a weird band to me, and I spent so much time with that band. Of course, Say Anything are on this compilation, and I feel like I need you, the listeners, to know all of these things about Max Bemis and his weird personality if you're going to listen to the song that they cover and the way they cover it.
Well, and you know what, though, Brian? Of course, because this is episode 100, and we have, of course, great expectations for this podcast to just, go beyond reviewing albums and movies. Maybe we will get into a multi-part Max Bemis 2000s pop punk series.
So, for real, we could do like an episode a month or every other month? That is some cringe millennial shit. Say Anything is so millennial.
Well, you know, Brian, speaking of things that are extremely millennial, let's just get into this motherfucking album because holy shit, I know there's a lot we're going to talk about. In fact, Brian, for the first time, I think maybe ever, I'm just not even going to talk about the Amazon reviews because they're not even that interesting. And I just pretty much want to get straight into the synopsis here, the track listing. But before we
Can
get
I
into
make
that,
a guess about the Amazon reviews? Is it
I
a
mean, they
bunch of
all were like,
millennials that just love this album?
pretty much, yeah. I mean, there's a couple
Yeah.
people calling it cringe and stuff, but nothing super interesting, so I'm just going to skip them all together, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. They're pretty boring. But I do have a few quick details before we get into the track listing here. So this came out in 2008. It does have a parental advisory sticker because there's a lot of swearing on this album for the kiddies, even though this album is literally just kids bop for like rap and hip hop.
No,
There's
it
so many
is.
kids bop songs on here. And it was released on Fearless Records. It's 59 minutes and 13 seconds long. And on Amazon, it has a 4.4 out of 5. And on Rate Your Music, it has a 1.55 out of 5. So quite the difference there.
Quite the disparity.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but yeah, the quick details here. So, without further ado, let's just get to the track listing here. So, the first song on here is by the band Set Your Goals, and it's the cover of Put Your Hood Up by Little John and the East Side Boys.
Only crunk track on this album.
Yep, literally the only crunk song on Punk Goes Crunk. The other 14 songs are like rap and hip hop classics.
So they're starting the album off. Track 1 with Set Your Goals. As someone who spent a lot of time in the fucking Warped Tour, this album is very, almost all except for maybe 4 exceptions, C and D tier Hot Topic bands. The first track features Set Your Goals. Taylor, do you know anything about Set Your Goals?
Never fucking heard of them, and to be honest with you, I think there's like 4 or 5 bands on here that don't even have like Wikipedia articles.
Yeah,
like that's how
'cause that shit's
obscure these
embarrassing.
bands are.
Set Your Goals had a brief moment, let's say in the late 2000s, early 2010s, after this album came out, where they were a little influential. They described themselves as easy core. It's the wimpiest pop punk ever, but played at like hardcore tempos and with breakdowns. That's literally what it is.
Yes, and the most famous easycore band is actually the one that has a track at the very end, Newfound Glory. I would say it's probably the most famous easycore band, at least that I can think of. They might have been the first major
the
easycore
first band that I would describe as easycore, and that's even more like Newfound Glory. I mean, they still suck, but that's a little bit more like core, like pop punk. Set Your Goals is fucking goofy. If you couldn't tell based on this cover.
Yes, so there's a couple funny moments on here. Instead of the N-word, they say all my African-American people, which is funny, and it's like dubbed in, like an old movie. It's kind of funny. But yeah, it's the whitest people in the world covering a crunk song. And then there's also a Yoda rap breakdown. It's so bad. It's so bad.
It's incredibly epic. It's incredibly millennial. I'm not really sure what they were thinking. During the second to last verse, a member of Set Your Goals does a Yoda voice and then replaces the N-word with the word Jedis every time.
Yeah, it is really fucking
also,
bad.
One of the things about this album that bothers me is, first of all, anytime like a rock band covers rap, it's not impossible. People have done it well, but you're getting into dicey territory. They all make a point. Well, no, they don't all make a point of not saying the N-word. One of the bands here does say the N-word, but most of them don't say it. But the thing is that there's kind of, to me, and I'm not trying to do some like Tumblr type SJW stuff, there is sort of a vaguely racist undertone to most of this album in that it's kind of tongue-in-cheek and funny, and it's like, we're white people, but we're doing gangster rap, right? There's something questionable about that to me already, right?
No, it is. It is very 90s. Even though it came out in 2008, that's like a 90s thing. Like, nerdy white guys are going to be epic rappers. I mean, the only person to have ever done that well was fucking Warren Beatty in Bulworth. That's it. Everybody else has failed at that.
There are 2 types of tracks on this album, right? There's ones like this where it's like, we're a rock and roll band, but boy, wouldn't it be funny if we rapped and we did black people music? And there's another type where it's like, let's just try to play this song straight and make it work to our shitty fucking genre. Maybe the worst moment on the album for me is the Yoda rap, and it's so appropriate that it kicks off the record.
It really is. It's like somebody taking a shit right in front of you, and it's like, God, this is immediately how this is going to start.
You
oh
know
my
what
God.
you're in for. You know, nobody can say that the first couple of tracks were pretty decent and then it got bad.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But you talked about the racism aspect. That's what fucking Ben Shapiro did when he did that song with fucking Tom McDonald. He's like, hey, look, I can rap better than these blacks, even though it was really bad.
Although we will say he does rap better than Tom McDonald. I genuinely think that.
That's fair. Tom McDonald is an F-tier rapper, 100%.
Well, yeah,
he's literally got one.
Sucks.
He's got one good song, though, in my opinion. I think he's got one banger.
Did you know, I haven't been able to find this album even online. He started out as a conscious jazz rapper in the late 90s. He was doing like Tribe Called Quest style conscious rap.
That is so fucking awesome. I love
Isn't
that
that
shit.
crazy?
That is. And the last cover, which in my opinion is the worst in the whole album, is Conscious Rap. And who boy,
Oh,
once we
that's
get there.
nasty.
Oh my.
Nasty thing to do. I mean, we'll get there.
No, yeah. So the next one I hear is talking about Max Bemis. So this is Say Anything with the cover of Got Your Money by ODB and featuring Kellis. Now, this is not the best. I mean, I don't know if there's a single best.
No.
They're all bad.
No, this is all bad. The whole album is fucking garbage.
But I would say this is probably the one I tolerated the most, I would say. He is being epic on here in a way that is kind of enjoyable if I was like 15. And he sounds like Dane Cook singing at some points here.
This does do the epic I'm a white guy rapping thing here that we were just complaining about. I remember hearing this when I was a big Say Anything fan, and I was a big fan of that band. Basically, I've heard everything they've done, all their outtakes and shit, from like 2002 to 2014. And I remember not really liking this at the time, but it made sense, and it does make sense. Max is this weird guy. He's got a huge ego. He picked, I mean, I love ODB. Nothing against the song or ODB, but Max picked one of the nastiest songs they probably would have let him do on this album to do it. And then he straight up put his own name in it, like multiple times. Like he's relishing being a weird, nerdy white guy who like pimps out women. And then musically, it's just weird. He has, you know, I don't know if it's him playing all of it or if it's the Say Anything band that he eventually formed at this point. It's kind of a weird minimal bass and drum thing with these very weird atonal kind of low guitar noises cropping up now and then. It's a weird choice. He strips all the kind of funk stuff out of this track and just makes it this weird drum and bass kind of post-punk sounding thing. That makes it sound cooler than it is, but I do think that's what he's going for. And he makes the most obnoxious voice when he's rapping.
It's so bad. Like I said, it sounds like Dane Cook trying to sing on here at times. Like it is just, it's not good. It's not good. It is one of the more tolerable songs in this album, but it's still not good in my opinion.
It's more tolerable to me. It's also like most of the tracks on here is just like some pop punk band, some like emo band was like, yeah, we're going to do a rap song. It'll be easy and they'll pay us money. I do think Bemis thought about the song he was going to do and thought about picking a song that fit in with his band's aesthetic and his whole deal and what he likes to sing about. And in this case is being nasty to women, right? I think his choice was more deliberate than most of the other ones. I'll say that.
No, absolutely. You can never say that Max Bemis wasn't being honest on this one, for sure. He was very honest to a fault.
Yeah. Really, that's true of all of his albums. Maybe someday I'll make you listen to Is a Real Boy, his studio debut. Yeah. Oof. There's a gang rape track on that album.
Oh, God, Jesus. Yeah, fuck.
There's just the part where he describes a gang rape.
Well, you know, something that's way less cringe and gross than that is the next track on here by The Secret Handshake, which is
who is that?
The cover of the Skilo song I Wish. Well, you know what? I looked him up. Secret Handshake. They don't even have a Wikipedia article. It's just a guy. So I guess one of the members of that band, and that's it. This might have been like a solo project with this one guy. But either way,
there were a lot of emo bands like that, so maybe.
That's fair. But yeah, they're covering the Skilo song I Wish. And, you know, to be clear, I'm not a big fan of that song. This is like the first song on the album so far that I'm like not a fan of, really. It's fine.
It's a cute song. The original song, I think, is fun. It's fun.
It's one of those songs like, you know, Biz Markie or whatever, or like those kind of like more joke rappers who would make songs about them being kind of losers. And I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's absolutely. Obviously. Like now that doesn't seem like such a big deal. You got people like Lil Dicky and you've got fucking Childish Gambino stuff. But at the time that was kind of cool. Like to be like, I'm kind of a dork, but I can rap. You know what I mean? It was a little kind of innovative. The track itself sucks, I think.
Nope, it sucks. And also, literally, they only really repeat the, you know, I wish I was a baller line. And it's like, there's much more to that song than the one line, guys. Like, I just don't get it.
Maybe they had the self-awareness to be like, we aren't going to try to rap. It's going to sound weird if we rap. We're just going to do the catchy chorus. Like, maybe that was the thinking. Maybe they heard Bemis doing Got Your Money, where he does, like, rap the whole song. And they were like,
it's like, I don't know about that. Whatever that guy's name is. Let's hear. What's his name? Luis Dubik. Never heard of him in my fucking life.
So the point I want to make when I say, I'm going to say after every band that I don't know from this era, who is that, is because this was, again, not my preferred scene, but I knew quite a bit. Like, if you can't tell from my Say Anything thing, I spent some time in this region of, like, rock music. But there are fucking bands on this album that I just straight up don't know. Even at the height of my pop punk listening, my Hot Topic listening, I never would have listened to because they seem so boring, right? I've never heard of The Secret Handshake. And that's the case for many bands on this album.
And once again, they didn't even have a fucking Wikipedia article, so who remembers them? Nobody remembers them. I don't even know if anybody remembers Luis Dubik or whatever the fuck his name is.
Maybe he has like another project that's more like renowned or something. I don't know.
That's fair. And the next one on here is the cover of Men in Black from Will Smith featuring Coco of Sisters with Voices, and from the artist Forever the Sickest Kids.
So that is a band that I recognize, but I probably heard them a couple times when I was listening to some emo and pop punk and post-hardcore or whatever, where I'd be like, not for me. Or maybe I just thought the name was stupid because I remember distinctly thinking the name was stupid. But my recollection is they were never an A or B tier. Like, they were a few notches down from your Say Anythings, your Fall Out Boys, your Dashboard Confessionals, your MCRs. I at least to know their name. Now, as far as the song choice, I know you love this song, and I enjoy it. It's fun. It's kind of childish song to pick as a rock band. Like, to me, if I was in a rock band, like a punk band of some type, and gonna do a rap song, I would pick a song that was kind of punky, right? Like, Got Your Money, that kind of makes sense. The choice to cover Men in Black is like, you know any other rap songs?
No, it's very funny. And, it's one of those things where, yeah, you're right. This is probably my favorite of the tracks so far, to be honest with you. Maybe that's just my, sense of, 90s nostalgia. But I really genuinely do love, Will Smith's, soundtrack, songs from, the late 90s,
No,
early
he's
2000s.
good. They're catchy songs. He's very good at it.
Catchy, very enjoyable, and it brings back an era of, once again, end of history, 90s nostalgia that I genuinely love. Those were all, the toys I grew up with, were movie tie-in shit from, late 90s, early 2000s Will Smith movies and stuff like that.
And the music video, the original Men in Black music video is so 2000s. Everything's chrome.
Yes, it is. And it's just, it was probably cost $20 million. That was when music videos were a fucking production. And, that was the era of, Godzilla with P. Diddy and Robert Plant or whatever. I think that was Robert Plant, I don't remember. But or Jimmy Page or whoever the fuck that was in that Godzilla soundtrack.
Oh, Jimmy
or whatever.
Page. Jimmy Page, yep.
No, Jimmy Page, okay. So, but yeah, that was back in the day when music videos featuring whatever music video, and it would air on MTV, and it would get 70 million viewers. That was
there'd be
that was the last era of monoculture. And that to me is just,
truly.
It brings back so many memories. Except for the Super Bowl, what's really monoculture anymore in America? Really nothing.
And is the Super Bowl even in the way that it was when we were kids? Not really.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely the fuck not. People watch it, but it's just, it exists. It's not a fucking, that much of a spectacle anymore. Let's be real here. But no, yeah, I think this is okay as a cover. Obviously, it's not, the best song ever. And these guys are, once again, a C and D tier fucking pop punk band covering, an awesome song from the late 90s. So for me, it's just, it's fine. It's not offensive. Yeah. It exists. That's how I feel about it. And then next one on here is, and this is, boy, this is the band My American Heart, where I'm going to say, who is that? Who the fuck is My American Heart? This one at least has a Wikipedia article, but they're covering California Love by, of course, the legendary Tupac and Dr. Dre. And this one, man, this sucks. This is terrible. Yeah, the auto-tune on this is dog shit. Terrible. And autotune was in the original song, but that was when autotune was actually used as an interesting artistic
they
decision.
were using it. Yeah, it's kind of a funky futuristic sound.
As part of G-Funk, basically. It's an extra G-Funk instrument.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know anything about My American Heart. I don't know anyone who does. But the impression that I get just from hearing them, I did look this up because I was like, who the fuck is that? They existed from 2001 to 2009. So what I think is pop punk starts popping off in the early 2000s. They start a pop punk band, and it kind of just wanes. It seems like they probably started when they're pretty young. Most pop punk bands do start pretty young in more ways than one. And then 2009, they're kind of hills crested. They haven't really popped off. They haven't become fucking Dashboard Confessional, and they call it. That's what I'm guessing is the case for this band. They're just another fucking pop punk band from the 2000s that weren't that memorable. Couldn't really distinguish themselves from the herd enough to have any sort of lifespan.
No, absolutely, yeah. Just, once again, a pretty forgettable, 2000s emo band covering one of the best fucking rap songs of the 90s. One of the best rap songs fucking ever.
Yeah, what a beloved
not
song.
Very well.
Okay, so covering, like Skilo, covering Will Smith for something like this, those are fun songs. Those are party songs, right? Covering, Tupac, borderline offensive just in concept for an album like this.
No, absolutely.
There are artists like Will Smith who it's do a fun cover of it with your shitty rock band. But, there are artists on here, and I would even include ODB in that, who are, serious artists who mean a lot to people, and people are going to say, well, that's not very punk rock, so you say you got to respect. It's kind of stupid, right? It's kind of be we're going to do a funny, epic cover of California Love. Half of these covers, it doesn't really sound like they're that interested in the original song. One of the things, and I think that's true of this particular cover, this California Love cover, is it doesn't even sound like they barely make it a cover, right? It sounds like a band just writing one of their own songs and kind of grafting the lyrics onto it.
Yeah, exactly. It's not the worst song in this album. That, once again, we will definitely get to that at the very end. But yeah, this is another big fucking stinker. This is another turd on my lap from a band that nobody fucking remembers. And then, speaking of, that actually leads perfectly into the next track here, which is I Wanna Love You by Akon featuring Snoop Dogg. by the artist The Maine. And once again,
Who?
who?
I'm being a little disingenuous. I dated a girl in high school who listened to this band. And I remember seeing them on her playlists, but I do not remember what they sound like. They made absolutely no impression on me. So clearly, people were listening to The Maine. This is a band I had previously encountered, which is more than I can say for some of these bands. Do you ever hear even like the emo kids, like the cringe millennials who are like defend pop punk, whatever, when they're 38 years old? Are any of them talking about The Maine? No. People want to go see MCR. Maybe people want to go see fucking Fall Out Boy. People want to go see fucking Rapist Ass Brand New when they get back together. There are bands that people remember. Nobody's fucking remembering The Maine.
No, absolutely fucking not. And also, like, this song is so, and this is like the first song on here that really has this. This is so Kids Bop. This sounds like fucking Kids Bop.
Yeah.
Because the original song is, of course, I Want to Fuck You. But
yeah,
obviously they had
to
change it for the American version.
I Want to Fuck You, one of the all-time great strip club songs.
You know, Brian, you're just saying that because you want to go to his fucking city that didn't end up happening.
Do you know the song Akon wrote against bipartisanship, where he was talking about how like red and blue were all the same? And there's a part of the song where he says, we don't need our kids growing up in juvenile facilities or growing up with mental disabilities. And it's like, what?
My favorite Akon moment of all time is when he picked up that fan in the audience and fucking chucked him. You remember that?
Yes.
It was like some white kid being a douche. And he's like, hey, come on up here. And he like fucking like fireman picked him up and threw him back out in the crowd and like knocked his ass out. I think he severely injured him too.
That's unfortunate, but that's also like standard behavior if you're being obnoxious at a hardcore show. So like,
no, absolutely. Akon is real punk.
Akon is the most punk person credited on this album, potentially.
No, absolutely. So yeah, to the audience at home, just imagine I Want to Love You / I Want to Fuck You, but it's Kids Bop. That's literally what this sounds like. It's not good.
Listeners, you'll be shocked to know, but it's yet another track on this album that we do not enjoy.
No. Oh, and also, like, even though it's very Kids Bop, but the guy singing it, he sounds so incel. Like, it is crazy how incel
so
this guy is.
So fucking whiny and
I
pathetic
wanna love you. It's so bad.
It's like Christian doing So Need a Cute Girl.
It really is. Oh my God, yes, 100%. Maybe someday we'll review those songs. Like, was it Chris Chan and the Sonichu Boys?
Yeah, Chris Chan and the Hedgehog Boys. And then after she transitioned, she made a sequel called Christine Chan and the Hedgehog Girls. Which I think, to be honest, I think some fucking, like, try-hard troll paid her to make, to be honest, the sequel. So, you know, who cares?
Oh, yeah.
The first one is funny.
No, absolutely. And then the next one on here is Kryptonite, I'm On It. The original artist is Purple Ribbon All-Stars, and the artist was Emmanuel, which, once again, who the fuck is Emmanuel?
I'm guessing this is more kind of the post-hardcore branch of the genre based on their sound. Not good post-hardcore. I don't mean like Fugazi or even like Thursday. I mean post-hardcore like...
Three-word band.
Yeah.
Pierce the Veil, Bless the Fall. I could just keep going on.
There's actually one of those bands on this album.
Yes, there is.
At this point of the album, I would say to me, this is one of, especially after California Love and I Want to Love You, this is a more tolerable track. I think that mostly, this is an example, and there's a few more in the album, of the band seeming to play it mostly straight. There doesn't seem to be a lot, in my opinion, of the, we're white guys doing a rap song. It's mostly like them going, okay, we're going to take this rap song, we're going to make it a song by us. We're going to try to fit it into our style. I mean, every song on this album is bad. Don't get it wrong. But to me, that's a little more dignified for all parties involved if you're just saying, we're going to take this song and make it sound like a song we would play, which I think is what that's what Emmanuel are doing with Kryptonite, in my opinion. It works a little bit better.
Yes, I agree. And this was the one in my notes where I just put pretty boring cover and nothing much to say. And I had a lot to say about a lot of the songs this album, but yeah, this was to me the one where I'm just like, all right, it exists.
Because it's not bad enough. It's not as bad as like Got Your Money or like Still Fly that you can actually talk about it at length, right?
No, absolutely. All right. And then the next song on here is The Sea 2.0, originally from The Roots, featuring Cody Chestnut. And the artist is Personnel once again. Who
is Personnel?
You know what? Honestly, though, Brian, I think this band, personally, I think they took an L covering this.
It's a bad move, right? It's a bad move to pick. If you're doing a project like this, it's probably safer to pick your more novel artists, your more funny artists than your Tupacs, your Roots, your ODBs, your Arrested Developments even, your more respected artists. You're taking a bigger risk doing that. The Roots, I can see the appeal for a rock band. You know, they are an actual band, and as a rock band, you're thinking that it'll translate better, but there's also just a higher bar to climb where you might might look buffoonish by being like a white guy covering one of their rap songs, you know?
No, absolutely, yeah. And this is also the one where, like, even though this band is once again a who, what the fuck, like, these guys are definitely one of the more competent musicians on this album, or one of the more competent, like, bands actually, like, playing an
So
instrument on here. But the problem is that the Roots are, like, an all-time classic fucking band. They're an incredible band. And, like, this no-name band is covering this, and it's like, this just doesn't work.
So I had to look this up. I didn't know this offhand. Apparently, Personnel is a side project of the frontman of the pop punk band The Starting Line, who at this time would have been like a pretty hip band in the pop punk scene. So maybe he was able to leverage that by being like, I won't give you a Starting Line song, but how about you use my weird experimental side project for your stupid crunk album? I actually think that this track, it's a little less obnoxious sounding to me. I think just because the bones of the Seed 2.0 are such a good solid song and they mostly play it straight, so it doesn't sound too horrible to me. It's not so grating the way that the way that the first track is. Yeah, there's nothing like the Set Your Goals Yoda rap in here, so I'm like, all right, whatever, you did this crappy cover, it's fine, moving on.
No, exactly, yeah. And then the next one on here is from the first band in like fucking 5 songs that I've actually heard of. So this is the cover of Still Fly by originally the band Big Timers by The Devil Wears Prada. Now, I've never been a fan of The Devil Wears Prada. Even in my like more embarrassing love of metalcore era, like the nerdy metalcore from the late 2000s, I've always thought The Devil Wears Prada fucking sucks. So when I saw it there on this album, I'm like, oh god, what the fuck did they cover? And this is not the worst, but this is bad. This is once again very motherfucking bad.
So for a certain type of millennial, this cover is a beloved nostalgic track. The original is great. Big Timers, great act. This is a great album. This is a great song from that period. Why a wimpy metalcore band would want to cover it, I don't know. This is another good example of they don't even really seem to try to cover the song. So what Devil Wears Prada do with this is basically they write a Devil Wears Prada song, right? There's like a million parts to it. It's like 5 minutes long. It has a bunch of metal tropes in it. It has a breakdown. It's got all the Devil Wears Prada shit. All the shit in that genre. And then they just kind of graft the lyrics and a little bit of the melody of Still Fly onto it, right?
Yes, no, absolutely. And I know I keep hating on Devil Wears Prada. They are a really fucking terrible
No,
band.
they suck.
And they did once again, a bullshit cover of this. So, what? Devil Wears Prada, you can suck my dick as always.
This and Got Your Money by Say Anything are the 2 tracks that people remember from this album. People will talk about fondly, that I have noticed. People our age will be like, oh, they did that crazy cover of Still Fly. Remember how crazy that was? And it's like, yeah, just a shitty Devil Wears Prada song.
Yeah. And then the next track on here is the only single off this album. There was one single, and it's the cover of Umbrella, originally by Rihanna featuring Jay-Z, by the band All Time Low. Now, this is one of the ones that, even though, once again, I don't like any of the songs on this album, I think this one works better than most, because this is the song on the album that I'm probably the least big a fan of, the original version of it. And these guys do a competent job of it. It's already a pretty soft song on its own, the original is, so a softer band doing a, more rock-inspired cover of it works fine, I guess.
So first of all, I remember when All Time Low came out, when they were like the next big thing in like pop punk, and I remember thinking, this is it. Pop punk has become so far removed from the 70s punk that it's supposed to be a development of. Punk rock could not possibly become more far removed from the Ramones and the Sex Pistols. It could not possibly become softer and wimpier than All Time Low. And it's gotten so much worse. But one thing I will say, All Time Low basically see Umbrella as a catchy, nice pop song. And so they just play it like an All Time Low song. They take the melody from it, they take the chorus, and they make it a sentimental, kind of sappy, anthemic song that sounds like something that All Time Low would do. It works pretty well because, again, they play it straight. They just go like, okay, we're going to take this song, make it work as something we would do. They're not trying to be cute with it, and they're also not doing the Devil Wears Prada thing of just grafting the lyrics onto an unrelated song they wrote. They really are trying to translate this song organically to their style. Those are the tracks on this album that typically work better for me.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I would say this is in probably the top 3 of songs that I could tolerate. If a quirked up millennial former Spoons and Monkey Cheese girl were to be like, listen to this thing I liked when I was a teenager, I'd be like, okay, this is fine. While I'm on her bed, it's 90% Squishmallows.
Yeah. You're
Which, by the way,
into all the Squishmallows. Yeah.
This thing literally happened to me 2 years ago. Not this exact song, but this exact scenario. It happened to me 2 years ago.
Yeah, of course. Of course. That is part part of the aging millennial experience.
No, absolutely. Oh, God. And then speaking of things that are also part of the millennial experience, this next track is by the band Scary Kids Scaring Kids, and the song is Notorious Thugs, originally from the Notorious B.I.G. featuring Bone Thugs and Harmony. And holy shit, even though this isn't the literal worst, it's probably the worst because by far the longest song. This is 7.5 minutes long. Why?
Well,
Why?
7.5 minutes long. This might be my favorite. The original version of Notorious Thugs, of all the songs they cover on here, that might be my favorite. It's a great song. I've never liked Scary Kids Scaring Kids. Just bad mall post-hardcore metalcore thing. Just never my scene. Even when I was listening to Brand New and Say Anything, wasn't into that shit. I found it deeply offensive that they were named after a Cap and Jazz song, because I, without reservation, love Cap and Jazz. That is a great fucking band. And like, I was just like, why is this shitty band think they should be named after a Cap and Jazz song? But what really makes this song bad, first of all, it's so long. Second of all, I mean, in the version I listened to, Taylor, they say the N-word repeatedly.
Yes.
Is there an uncredited black guest rapper on this that I'm not aware of?
Well, was Notorious Thugs... Oh, yeah, okay. I mean, I was going to say, I don't know if they got Bone Thugs and Harmony to be on this compilation, because I doubt it. So, yeah, no.
I mean, it doesn't sound like them. It doesn't sound like Bone at all.
That was the only thing where I'm like, maybe, but no. There is no featuring black artist on here as far as I'm aware of.
And here's the thing, like, mid-2000s, you could still ironically do that. In fact, to be honest, I was a little surprised that Max Bemis didn't say the N-word on his track, because that seems like a thing he would have done at the time and thought was cool, kind of edgy and whatever. But, like, what is this, 2006?
2008.
2008. I mean, it doesn't even seem like they thought about it. Because the thing is, Max Bemis didn't do that, but I assumed before listening to this album that he would have, because that seemed like the type of thing he would do to be edgy. Doesn't feel like Scary Kids Scaring Kids are saying it to be edgy. It feels like they're not even thinking about it, right?
No, it just kind of comes second nature to them, and that's...
Which maybe it does.
Yeah, I'm surprised more bands on here didn't just drop the N-word at the time to be cool.
Yeah.
Not even like the white guy appropriating African American culture way of saying the N-word, just like nerds being
like the Daniel Larson way. You just
Yeah.
say it as if it's not a racial slur. Saying it to another white guy.
Yeah, I know, right? Oh, God. But, speaking of people I want to call racial slurs, too, the next band on here is The Escape Frame, which, once again, who? They don't even have a Wikipedia article. And this is their cover of Nothing But a G Thing from Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg originally. And holy shit, this is awful. This is
bad.
Terrible. This is honestly something that it sounds like an open mic at a shitty hipster coffee shop in like 2008 would play. Like a guy wearing like a fucking like epic hat from the era and like a fucking scarf when it's July with skinny jeans and like slip-on shoes just going to a coffee shop singing this. Awful.
This is bad. There is something about it that I thought kind of worked. Hear me out. So Gin and Juice has that cool, iconic Dre West Coast whistle throughout there. You guys know what I mean, right? Okay, the Moog West Coast whistle. So this band, they do this thing where in place of the West Coast whistle, they play these kind of bluesy cock rock lead guitar sounds. And I thought, that's kind of clever. That kind of works. That's kind of, you know what I mean? They tried to take an iconic element of this song and graft it onto their style in a way that made sense. And I appreciated that. I appreciated hearing those iconic West Coast whistle synthesizer kind of lines played as like a cock rock lead guitar like this band would do. I was like, okay, that's something. At this point in the album, I'm looking for whatever I can get.
Yeah, literally just anything to grab onto. Like you're on a cliff and you're about to fall and you just need to grab onto anything. Oh, God. And speaking of, that leads us to the next song, which is the cover of Gin and Juice, originally by Snoop Dogg once again, right? Yep, Snoop Dogg. By the band Hot Rod Circus, which I don't know this band fucking either. I'm going to be real here. Who is this fucking band?
At this point in the album, I'm pretty burnt out. This term has come back in vogue, and it wasn't actually quite in vogue in 2008. This has real indie sleaze vibes. About 3 years from the time this album came out, we would be calling this indie sleaze.
Yes, exactly. Is it the type of motherfucker I was just describing earlier at the hipster coffee shop, or is that something different?
Still kinda. It's like Williamsburg hipster who is like trashy and like has a mustache and a mullet and wears cutoffs and does drugs and like fucks a lot and like has raunchy sex. But they're kind of ironically doing it. Okay, Russell Brand was a big part of the indie sleaze scene.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So that was a big, and honestly, some hip music came out of it. Some like hip stuff. But that was like a scene in the early 2010s. Indie sleaze. This is kind of like the first rumblings of that, as far as I'm concerned.
No, absolutely. And the guy I described earlier at the hipster coffee shop, both of his parents have Wikipedia articles.
Of course.
And then the next track on here, the penultimate track is Hey Ya by the band Laureen Drive, which is the last band we're going to say. Who
Man,
is this
who?
fucking band? But originally, of
This is
course,
a
this is Outkast. This is, I don't know if maybe the most famous, but this is definitely, I
oh,
would
it
say to a
is.
lot of people, the
It's the
most
most
famous
famous.
song on here. From the original artist, to be clear.
Love Outcast. A millennial anthem. It's a great song. Perfect pop song. What frustrates me about this cover is this should work. I'm a firm believer that there are certain songs that the core elements of them are so good that if you stay faithful to them and just tweak them to your style, it'll work. Like, might not be everyone's cup of tea, but you can make it work. Song like Landslide by Fleetwood Mac. Song like Fast Car by Tracy Chapman. Hey Ya, for a pop punk band, should be a slam dunk. You play some distorted guitars, you take that jangly riff, you just play it straight, and you do your snotty skate punk vocals. This should be a slam dunk. It should be so easy to do. But they can't help but be cute and do little, like, tongue-in-cheek versions of Andre's call and responses and kind of be like, see, we're in on the joke. And they fucking kill it. Also, the performance just weak. They just needed a little more umph to it, and they just don't put it in.
No, I couldn't agree more. And yeah, this is not good once again. And I mentioned the Kids Bop thing. This is a Disney Channel fucking Kids Bop thing. Once again,
Yeah.
this is so weak. This is so
Yeah.
flaccid.
Yeah,
Like Jesus Christ.
nothing went into it. So let's see. We're at the penultimate track. There is 5 artists featured on Punk Goes Crunk who are, let's say, A or B tier emo artists. We got Say Anything. We got Devil Wears Prada. We got All Time Low. We got Newfound Glory. Right. So we got those 4. The rest of these are all C tier, maybe even D tier artists. And my guess is it's because like this is kind of fucking embarrassing. Most people don't want to do this. Not surprised Max Bemis did it because he just is crazy prolific and would cover any song. But for instance, like MCR and Fall Out Boy. Fall Out Boy might do something this corny now, but at the time probably wouldn't have done this. They were on Tony Hawk's American Wasteland. They were covering punk songs, right? Even in the Hot Topic scene, most bands didn't want to be on here. So you've got a bunch of bands we've never heard of because this shit sucks.
Yeah, this shit sucks and is for fucking losers. And this
This
series is
loser
still
shit.
going, by the way. The most recent entry of the Punk Go series came out in 2019. That's how recent this is.
Amazing. Amazing.
Oh, God. And we got one more track in this motherfucking stinker, and this is the biggest stinker of all of them to me. And this is from one of the bigger bands on here. So this is from Newfound Glory. This is the cover of Tennessee by the band Arrested Development. Not the TV show. The band Arrested Development would be pretty pissed off to get that confused because they won a whopping $10,000 for suing Fox and
That's
the TV
insane.
show.
Has Arrested Development is an expression.
It is an expression, although I think they did trademark it at one point, but either way, they were offered $10,000 in the lawsuit. So, it is what it is. And, nowadays people remember Arrested Development as being one of the best TV shows of all time. And even though Arrested Development, that album, 3 years, 5 months, 2 days in the life is fucking incredible. But that's really the only thing people really remember from them. I mean, of course, the famous, Todd and the Shadows train records on their second album. But this is a great song, and I would say maybe this is my favorite of the actual, original tracks here. Like, the song Tennessee is, an incredible track to me. It's very powerful.
Yeah, it is. It's beautiful. This is a song, and I get the impression that Newfound Glory were trying to take this song seriously. I don't think they're laughing at it. I think they think they're being sincere. It's such a bad idea to cover this song as like a white rock band. Maybe Newfound Glory, whose members have roots in hardcore, were involved in FSU, are involved in animal rights struggles. They have some bona fides with fighting right-wing elements in the hardcore scene when they were kids. That is true of Newfound Glory. I just can't imagine. It seems like they were we're gonna pick a serious rap song to close the album to show we really understand the genre. And boy, it's awful.
Yeah, it's one of those things that even with, I think, the best of intentions, you can't really have, because the subject of the song is essentially epigenetic trauma. It's basically the lead vocalist of this band's speech talking about wanting to get away from all the painful past of his ancestors into the modern age of racism and violence and segregation in America that has existed and trying to go to a better place. And Newfound Glory, they're just very white. It's very white. And and I'm not saying you couldn't talk about this as a white person in a historical context and be respectful of it, but talking about this specific song and doing a cover of it as the whitest guys in the world, it just feels wrong. I'm sorry.
I figured it out. Newfound Glory have recontextualized the song. They're making it about the epigenetic trauma of being a pop punk kid, and that is why we need to defend pop punk.
You know, Brian, I think there is some absolute truth to that, 100%. But yeah, to me, even though this isn't like the worst sounding song on this album, this is definitely my least favorite because it just landed so poorly. Because a lot of the other songs really aren't about anything, particularly like a message thing, which is fine. Like, rap and hip hop and stuff. Like, black people don't need to talk about that kind of shit necessarily. But this is the one song where it's like a conscious song that has a purpose to exist, and it's just so fucking bad. Although, before I continue on my thoughts, I do want to talk about one YouTube comment. So, of course, we're not going to do Amazon reviews, but I do have a funny YouTube comment. And, talk about missing the point of the song, right? So, this YouTuber, I'm not going to say what their fucking YouTube username is, but they're talking about basically about like, how every song on this album, changed some of the lyrics to fit their style, except for this song. And he says, in parentheses, although I'm black and proud, lol, he's white. Just change it to white and proud, or would the SJW scumbag say it's racist?
Oh, cool, dude.
We said that fucking Newfound Glory missed the point. That motherfucker really missed the point.
Well, like, one of the things that's frustrating about this to me is that I don't like Newfound Glory. I think they're one of the better bands on this album, but they've never been, even when I enjoyed pop punk, they were never one of my favorite bands in that scene. I always thought they were pretty annoying. But if I'm not mistaken, the frontman for Newfound Glory was the guitar player in Shai Hulud, like a very political metalcore band.
You are correct. Yes, that is true.
So he's written, from like a white perspective, probably a more middle class, like punk rocker perspective. He's written about some of these issues. He's tackled them with some thought. This is the worst track because we've talked about how there is an underlying, vaguely racist element to this. There's an underlying weirdness to it this was a very popular trope for millennials. Indie folk artist or a pop punk artist, you do a rap song. That's why I say, for the most part, that the covers here that work better are the ones where they mostly play it straight because it kind of loses some of that element. This song tries to play it straight. It's very earnest, it thinks it's very earnest, it thinks it's very sincere, and it makes it, because of the specific content of this song, the specific power of Tennessee by Arrested Development, it makes it so much worse.
No,
it's
absolutely.
Very white guy with dreads.
It is 100%. He calls himself white chocolate and tries to pick up black girls, and he fails really bad at it.
This whole album, let's just say, like, what its fundamental flaw is, right? Most of these bands are not bands that anyone would recognize as punk rock, even in 2008. Newfound Glory, almost anyone, even a hardcore guy, hears them and goes, that's pop punk, that's a type of punk. Maybe even say anything. I think most people could say, like, that's kind of punky. Devil Wears Prada, is that punk to anyone? Shit like that, nobody would call that punk. And the thing is, when I said this to you just in messaging, there's no version of this album that would come out in 2008 that would be good. And it would still be corny, but you could do like Punk Goes Rap and have like Rancid do a track on there, Pennywise do a track. I'm not even picking my favorite bands. I'm just picking relevant punk bands from the time. Maybe even fucking Green Day. I don't know. 90s and 2000s punk bands. Maybe you even keep, some of the fucking emo shit on there. But you could make that work, and you could draw parallels, especially if you had a band like Rancid or something. You could draw parallels between like early punk and early hip hop and kind of the cultural exchange of ideas. Obviously, that's not what this album is about. It's really just they want to say the phrase "Punk Goes Crunk." They want to have the rhyme. They know it's going to be funny to a bunch of annoying little kids, like early online kids, and that all these dumb kids are going to think it's epic that a screamo band did Still Fly, right?
No, absolutely. Yeah, it was just, the way for like white suburban kids or like white small town kids to like put it on their MySpace and be like, here's this fucking punk band, quote unquote punk band or pop punk band, doing a cover of the rap songs that all the kids at school like that I hate. You know what I mean?
That I don't like, because I like real music, like fucking Yellow Card.
Brian, you were talking obviously about the vocalist of Shai Hulud. Fun fact, he was married to Sherry Dupree, the now ex-wife of Max Bemis. So there's that connection,
That's right.
too.
Maybe we will do the Max Bemis series, which you're going to hate him by the end. We'd have to go through his whole career. We have to, because he's so weird, artistically and as a person. 2010 to 2012-ish, the Shai Hulud Newfound Glory guy starts a new band. They write a song, and it's a very generic pop punk, my ex was mean to me sometimes song. Sherry tells Max, I think this song is about me. There are very specific things in this song that are about me. Max goes on a tirade saying, you fucking wrote a song about my ex? I'm gonna fucking kill you. You're such a fucking pussy. You're also a fucking wimpy pop punk hack. And he starts saying, like, the subtext being, you're not a real artist like me who listens to Queen and the Beatles and the Clash, who also makes pop punk. I might do pop punk, but I listen to the Velvet Underground. You're just pop punk, which is was threatening the dude from Newfound Glory and Shai Hulud, because he thought that, and I remember seeing it and being like, well, and at the time I was still a fan of Bemis's music. Kind of identified with him at that point in my life, unfortunately. So I see these tweets and I go, well, he seems kind of crazy, but if someone wrote a mean song about my wife, I'd go crazy on him too. And then I listened to the song, and it was the most generic song. And I was like, no, this could literally be about any chick.
Oh God, that's so funny. I can't wait till we get to the Max Bemis series because we will definitely cover topics very soon on this show, and that will definitely be a topic as well.
I'll figure out how we'll break it up into parts. We will have to divvy it up. We won't do them all at once, but I'll figure it out.
No, absolutely. And then before we get to our pluggables, Brian, do we have any final thoughts on this album?
This is a fucking bad album. I know that this millennials are old, and I know a lot of people our age, and even a lot of people probably that we'd be friends with, a lot of people we'd hang out with, a lot of women that Taylor and I both might associate with this probably have fond memories of this album. This was neither Taylor or I's scene, really. It was more my scene than his, if I remember right. But even at the time, this wouldn't have been for either of us. Like, I would have listened to this because Max Bemis had a track, and I remember, like I said, even as a kid thinking it was weird. This is bad. It is bad, and there are ways that it's bad that I hope if you're our age and you listen to it now for shits and giggles, and you're like, I thought that was kind of fun. There are ways that you will notice that it's bad that you might not have noticed in the 2000s. But also just bad. If you want to hear a Devil Wears Prada song, they have albums. You can listen to Devil Wears Prada. Newfound Glory have acoustic songs you can listen to. Max Bemis has probably hundreds of hours of music. He releases every fucking thing he records. You need him to do a shitty cover of ODB? Like, this sucks. This is the hardest thing for me to listen to. Typically, when we do album reviews, I listen to an album 5 or 6 times just because it's so easy for me to do while walking and running errands and shit throughout the week. I listened to this 2 times, and it was a struggle.
No, absolutely. Yeah. And I'll definitely bounce off of what you said. And I think I said this earlier, but like, I think this is the worst thing we've ever reviewed for the show. Like, I think this is fucking trash garbage. Like, even the bad things that we've covered have some like redeeming qualities or things to really make fun of. But this is just like a vortex of like mediocrity and like terribleness in a way that is not even so bad it's good because the effort was so low. That's the problem. The effort was low and the quality is low. So it's just bad.
You could argue, if you're a millennial, if you're a defend pop punk guy, like, I've listened to a lot of these bands, and I, like, really, at one point in my life, resonated with Brand New and Say Anything. Taylor, one of your favorite bands is MCR. There's a case to be made that some of the criticisms for this genre were not fair, and were not really serious criticisms, but this album is exactly what someone who would have made fun of fucking Hot Topic emo, and called it gay, and called it poser music, this is exactly what they are imagining. It is the worst, absolute worst elements of that scene, and it confirms to those people that are thinking of it that way, it would confirm all of their suspicions.
No, absolutely. Yeah, this was a real stinker. And, you know, I was telling my girlfriend that we were covering this, and she said, Taylor, why are you covering this? Why?
Because I like it, because it's really good.
Yeah, because I love it. And, you know, she was the one that said, like, all the African-American people line. And I'm like, oh, God, you've listened to this too?
I mean, for a type of millennial, this is a touchstone. There is probably a non-insignificant number of people in our demographic, Taylor, who'd be like, yeah, that kind of turned me on to hip-hop. Which, like, if it did that for someone, cool. Sure, it got you listening to some better fucking music. But you know that's a non-zero number of people kind of in our age bracket.
That's fair. Listen, if this got you listening to better songs or the original songs from these artists, then that's fine. I think that's fucking fantastic.
If you are listening to Lupe Fiasco and Dead Prez or even like Kendrick now, and you started out with Punk Goes Crunk because you were like an awkward, raw XD fucking kid in the 2000s, hey, I'm happy you found this album if this started you on that path. If I met someone, an adult, someone my age, I am 33 years old this year, and they were like, oh, I love that Punk Goes Crunk album. That's so fucking bass, that's sick. I would be suspicious of them. I would either think they were a pervert or I would feel kind of sad and think they had problems, and I'd be like, it's cool, buddy, I'm glad you like it.
Oh, yeah, I couldn't fucking agree more. But yeah, 100 motherfucking episodes, man. I can't believe it. We've been doing this shit for a long time. So
yeah, holy shit.
So this is your gift to the audience. 100 episodes. You get the worst thing we've ever fucking talked about.
The thing is, like, we've alluded to this. We're going to kind of open up. I'm sure we'll continue doing reviews, but we've talked for a long time about opening up how we talk about things, getting broader and getting kind of more into, like, general, like, themes and shit like that. We're going to have to talk about emo and pop punk some more. It's going to have to come up.
Oh, absolutely. That'll be part of our subjects, 100%. All right, so that is our review for this week. So let's get into our pluggables without further ado. So you can follow me at Carlos Chantor on twitter.com. And as well, please subscribe and follow us on both of our YouTube and our Spotify pages where we are uploading every episode simultaneously to both platforms. And as well, please donate to the Lucifer and the Father campaign. Of course, we're on episode 100. We've been shouting these guys out for probably half the series at this fucking point. But
For real.
these guys are making a fantastic series, Lucifer and the Father. There's episode 1 out on YouTube. We link it in every episode description. So please please watch that episode. And, they have a crowdfund right now. It's about a quarter of the way through last time I checked. But, they need more of our moral and financial support to continue to get their series off the ground. They're already in pre-production on future episodes at the moment. Are there any updates since their last episode, Brian?
There are not. I am going to reach out to Scott soon and just see if, since we're broadening kind of our topics and things, we've been spitballing between you and I ideas for things. Terminator 3 episode that he was on, or Terminator Salvation episode, I forget which, was great. He was really knowledgeable and it was fun talking to him. I was thinking I'd see if there was a topic he wanted to come in on and kind of chop it up about, but I have not seen any updates from him. Although I am enjoying his posts lately. He's having fun. He's getting a little political on Facebook.
Yes, and honestly getting pretty based.
Yeah.
So yeah, and as we always say, of course, if you donate to the campaign, just send us an email, send us a YouTube comment, just show us proof that you donated. We will, within reason, match those donations because, of course, we love Scott, Sean, Robert. We want their dreams to become a reality. And then the next pluggable we have here is a pluggable we've been having now for the last 6-7 months, which is the Luigi Mangione Defense Fund. Of course, our good boy Luigi, he's completely innocent of all charges. He didn't do it. The New York DA, federal prosecutors, they have nothing on him. The most underhanded recent shit that they've been doing recently is apparently they filed a false subpoena to get his protected health information. A false subpoena, to be very clear, to get his protected health information, violating HIPAA for whatever reason.
And again, what this is all about is they're seeing the groundswell of support. They're seeing the working and even middle-class solidarity that Luigi's getting. And so now they need to pin it on him, even though they know that they have nothing. They know he didn't do it. There is no basis to say that he's guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. They know that, but they have to make it stick because they're seeing the way that people have responded so positively to him and all the support he's got, and they need to quash it.
Absolutely. They need to make an example out of a really cool, hot guy that people like.
To be honest, I don't think he's that hot. He's not quite my type. But he does seem cool. He seems nice. He seems like a real sweetheart from everything you hear about him.
Absolutely, and also 100% innocent.
Yeah, show me the smoking gun evidence that you would think if it was so cut and dry, such a closed book case that he was guilty, you would think they would have presented that a long time ago, but they haven't because it doesn't exist.
Abso-fucking-lutely. And, as I said earlier, he has his defense fund. It's well over $1 million at this point. But, either way, if you want to donate to the campaign, both Brian and I have, because we believe in it. But if you don't have the money right now, because we are definitely coming up on a recession, I don't care what anybody says, we have, the tariff bullshit. We have student loans coming back in full motherfucking force. We have basically the subprime mortgage crisis coming back in real time. Fun fact, Brian, people are putting down as little as 1% down on houses again. You know what the motherfuck that means in an unstable economy. We might be able to afford a home soon, Brian. Homes might be worth what Pokemon cards 20 years ago were worth. And the non-hologram ones.
I'm gonna get an above ground pool and be neighbors with Robert Evans here in Laurelhurst in Portland.
You could honestly do that with the McDonald's worker salary pretty soon with the way the fucking economy is going, Jesus Christ. But either way, whatever. We're not gonna hope that all the millennials who happen to buy a couch, they can afford a hot couch.
All their life savings went to the couch they bought in 2012.
But no, the ones that can afford to buy a house, we're not hoping they lose their houses, but if they do, I will point and laugh like Nelson from The Simpsons. But either way, whatever.
You don't need to own a house. It's overrated.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is definitely. That is the boomer dream. But either way, speaking of things that aren't boomer dreams, so, if you donate to that campaign as well, just once again, send us an email, send us a YouTube comment. We will, within reason, match those donations about $20-$25. Same with the Lucifer and the Father campaign, because, of course, we believe in Luigi's innocence. But you know what? If you can't afford that, no problem. Just post about him online, talk about how fucking cool he is. Once again, if you're a big booty woman of color, post a picture of your ass with Luigi next to it. Just do anything. Do literally anything.
Send him a letter. He likes getting letters. Send him a brief, nice letter. He likes reading them. He likes answering them.
Absolutely. And just do anything. Talk about how fucking cool he is on Twitter. Now X. Put in a prompt with Grok being like, how cool is Luigi?
Yeah,
call him a
fuck up
Nazi.
Grok even more.
Yeah. Speaking of things that will fuck up grok, that leads perfectly into our Patreon as well, because of course we have a Patreon page. So please become a patron of ours today. Of course, we have several different tiers, including 2 of them are actual donation tiers to both the Luigi Mangione and the Lucifer and the Father campaign. So please, subscribe to that. Of course, we have the $100 tier where you can get 2 to 4 episodes a month where you get to pick the topic and be on the show with. Now, those, of course, don't roll over, so you can't fucking stack those on top of it, but you still get a guaranteed 2 to 4 episodes from us if you give us $100 a month. Now, we're only putting that at 1 person ever. So if you're a super fan of the show, and then, of course, the tier that we've been plugging the most is the $5 tier, where you get every episode about 48 hours early, because I always say the first 48 hours are most important. That is 2 to 4 episodes a month. Pretty good deal, $1.25 to $2.50 an episode, and that is, once again, guaranteed 2 to 4 episodes a month. We're not going to be like,
we're not going to Max Bemis you.
Exactly. We are not going to rip you off because we are trustworthy motherfuckers. So those are all my pluggables. Brian, do you have any pluggables as well?
Yeah, follow me on Threads and Instagram at JLoBiafra. That's my personal account, but that's the most efficient way to harass me. That is the most efficient way to threaten me, to make feedback, to argue with me. Also follow the show at Millennials Are Old Pod on Instagram and Threads. Threads probably the most efficient way to troll me, to humiliate me, to degrade me, to cuck me. Do it on Threads. That's probably where I'll see it most likely. You can also follow the Facebook page, Millennials Are Old. I think we're the first result when you type that in, but there are other pages now called Old Millennials or Millennials Are Old. We're the one with the cool Cultural Revolution banner, which you probably know if you're listening to. As well, I want to just reiterate with the Patreon, we're not changing the show. Obviously, show format, 3 years in, 100 episodes, but we are getting more expansive. And if you wanted, there is a possibility, I think, that we could creating ancillary material if it became beneficial. I don't think I'm alone in that, Taylor, right? If there was a point where it made sense for us to make exclusive material, we would be open to doing that. So if you really need an extra dose of me and Taylor talking about how you're a shitty old millennial, you're over the hill, you suck, you sucked in the 2000s, you suck now, your dick don't work, you're never gonna buy a house, you turned into a boomer way earlier than your boomer parents did, well then maybe you should send us some money and maybe we'll make a cameo for you. Maybe we'll make a special episode all about how you're a special little millennial angel and you don't suck shit.
No, 100%. But yeah, so that is our episode for this week. Once again, episode 100. Thanks to everybody who's listened and subscribed to us. All 110 subscribers. We appreciate you. But, we're hoping to get a couple more.
We love you all.
100.
We love you all. We have enough people that we can officially do the first MauCon.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll get the ball pit. We'll piss in the ball pit first.
We have a bunch of social realist murals up, but it's of you and I. It's
right,
you and I, but we're dressed like Usher and Lil Jon in the video for Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of old millennials, Brian, I'm getting tired. And I would usually plug certain things from this album, but I'm going to go crunk in my sleep and fall asleep. And I don't want to reference any of the bands or songs on this album because
I can't remember any of the bands or songs on this album.
Yeah, so have a good night, everybody. Sleep tight, and we'll come back soon with a new era of this pod.
Dun, dun, dun.
Hell yeah.
All right, good night, everybody.
Have a good night, everybody. Hell yeah.